Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles channel. My name is Erin and I have just a quick tutorial for you today. I'm going to be doing a series on my channel of some granny square motifs, so if you've been interested in learning how to crochet those, this is your place to get that information. We're going to start with a regular old granny square today, the classic one that has the kind of blocks of double crochet stitches separated by chain spaces. For this crochet project, you're going to need a hook. I'm using one that's a little bit big for the yarn size that I'm using. Part of that is so that it's a little easier to see what I'm doing on camera, and part of that is because I like to get some good drape with my granny squares. So I'm using a 6mm hook today for a worsted weight yarn. This is just the I Love This yarn from Hobby Lobby in one of their multicolored designs. I have that sitting in a yarn bowl off to the side this way, and then off to the side I also have my scissors ready to go for when I need them, and a metal darning needle to weave in all of the ends. Let's start with a slip knot. I'm going to be doing each step of this square really slowly so that you can see what I'm doing, but if you want it slowed down even more, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can actually change the playback speed so that you can get it slowed down even more while you're watching. The way I make my slip knots, I usually hold the tail end on one side and the working yarn on the other side, kind of make an open loop, put 2 fingers into that open loop and flip them upside down. Then you get these kind of 2 little rabbit ears that you're pinching with your thumb. And then I put 1 loop inside the other loop and pull it. And there you have your slip knot. I'm going to do that one more time. Hold your yarn like a loop, flip it, put 1 loop inside the other. It doesn't really matter which loop goes in, but you might want to adjust as you go and see if it's your tail that adjusts the size of the loop or your working yarn. I generally prefer if it's the tail that adjusts the size of the loop, but you can do what works for you. Then I'm going to insert my hook into that loop and pull it a little tight on the hook, but not so tight that I can't work my stitches. To start this granny square, we're going to be doing a chain 4. A chain stitch is just where you loop around your hook once and pull it through. So that's 1 chain stitch, 2, 3, and 4. Should have a tiny little chain like that. Now I'm going to insert my hook into the first chain I made back at the beginning near the slip knot. I'm going to pull through that loop and the next loop. Now I have a tiny little circle of chain stitches. Now we're ready to start our first row of granny clusters. We're going to start with a chain 3, and that's going to act as our first double crochet. So you should have your tiny little circle and your chain 3. Now we're going to do our first double crochet. To double crochet, you start by wrapping your yarn, then you insert into that circle, wrap your yarn and pull a loop through, wrap and pull through 2, wrap and pull through 2 again. That's a double crochet. We're going to make 1 more for this cluster. Wrap your hook into the circle, wrap your hook and pull through the circle, wrap your hook and pull through 2 stitches, wrap your hook and pull through 2 stitches again. This is our first granny cluster. Each granny cluster is going to be made of 3 double crochets, or if it's the first one for the round, 1 chain 3 and 2 double crochets. Now we've reached our first corner. We're going to make each corner space by chaining 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're ready for our next granny cluster. So it's 3 double crochets again. Wrap your hook, push it into the circle, wrap again and pull through the circle, wrap and pull through 2, wrap and pull through 2 again. Another double crochet, wrap your hook into the circle, wrap and pull through the circle, wrap and pull through 2, wrap and pull through 2 again. One more for this cluster, wrap your hook into the circle, wrap and pull through the circle, wrap and pull through 2, wrap and pull through 2 again. Now we're ready for our second corner, so we're going to chain 3. Time for our third granny cluster. So 3 more double crochets, wrap your hook through the middle, pull through the circle, pull through 2, pull through 2, double crochet number 2, wrap your hook into the circle, pull a loop through the circle, pull a loop through 2 stitches, pull a loop through 2 stitches again, double crochet number 3, wrap your hook, put it into the circle, pull a loop through the circle, pull a loop through 2 stitches, pull a loop through 2 stitches. Now it's time for our third corner, so we're going to chain 3 and then do 1 more granny cluster. So double crochet number 1, double crochet number 2, double crochet number 3. Now we're ready for our final corner for this round, so we're going to chain 3, and you're going to find the third chain stitch in that chain 3 we did at the beginning. Insert your hook, draw a loop through both stitches. That's your first round of your granny motif. You could leave this by itself for a super tiny granny square, but that would be pretty small, so we're going to do some more rows. Some people like to do their granny squares so that they're always facing the same side, and that can work for you, but I prefer to switch directions when I'm working, because if you work this in a round always facing the same side, eventually the inside of the square is going to start to tilt in your design. So I'm going to show you how to do a granny square where you turn after each row so that you don't get that tilting effect in the middle. We're going to start by chaining 3 and then flipping our square over. Now this chain 3 we just did is going to count as the first double crochet in our next cluster. We're going to work 2 double crochets into that chain 3 spot. There's our first cluster. Now we're at a corner. We're always going to build our corners over previous corners. So we're going to chain 3 and work our next double crochet cluster into that same chain 3 space that we started with. There's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Now we've reached a point where we need a space over a double crochet cluster that we did before. When you're working over a cluster like this, you just need to chain 1. That'll be kind of the bridge that goes over those stitches. And then we can work into the next space. We're going to do 3 double crochets, and 3. And since we're at a corner again, we're going to chain 3. Then we can work our next cluster in that same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Now we need a bridge over our double crochet cluster, so we're going to chain 1 and work into the next corner with 3 double crochets. Now we need to make a corner, so we're going to chain 3 and work into that same corner space, 3 more double crochets. Now we're going to chain 1 to bridge over that cluster and work into the next corner with 3 double crochets, . a chain 3, and 3 double crochets in that same corner space. Now we need one more bridge, so we're going to chain 1 and slip stitch into the 3rd chain of that chain 3 that you did at the beginning of the round. Here's your second round of your granny square. Now we can kind of see how the motif is working up. So in every corner, you'll always have 2 clusters worked into the same space with that corner built. And then you'll also work a cluster into each of the chain 1 spaces that we did going around. We're going to do one more round together. I flipped my work too early. So we're going to chain 3 to start our row, then flip our work and work 2 double crochets into that first chain 1 space. That's your first granny cluster for this row. We need a bridge over the cluster, so we'll chain 1 and then we'll do our corner in the next space. So 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 double crochets. Now we need a bridge, so we're going to chain 1 and do a cluster in the previous chain 1 space. Then chain 1 for a bridge, and we're going to do our 2 corner clusters in the corner. So that's 1 double crochet, 2, 3, then chain 3, then do 3 more double crochets. Now we're going to chain 1 for our bridge, work into the chain 1 space, and do 1, 2, 3 double crochets. Then chain 1, and now we'll be at a corner, so we'll do our 2 double crochet clusters with a chain 3 between them. Chain 3, and 3 more double crochets. Then chain 1 to bridge over your cluster, make a cluster in the chain 1 space, chain 1, and we're ready for a corner again. So 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 double crochets again. And then chain 1 and slip stitch in the top of that chain 3. And that's your 3rd row of a granny square. You can keep going with this as big as you want your granny square to be. Size can keep going on forever. You don't really need to change much of what you're doing. You'll just have more of those chain 1 spaces as you keep going for bigger and bigger rounds. But that's going to be it for this tutorial. After you're done with your granny square, you can cut your yarn and weave in those ends with the silver needle that you should have off to the side and your scissors. If you want to see other crochet tutorials, knitting tutorials, crafty stuff in general, make sure you hit subscribe down below if you're new here. And if you want to see me on other social media platforms, make sure you check the description box and you can see where I am on all those other places. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned something today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone.